So I took the wife and kids on a road trip last month, and my dad asked if we took turns driving. I said, yep, it was too hard to get there in a straight line.
Why didn't Han Solo enjoy his dinner?
I don't know, why?
It was chewy.
Well, my wife says I'm the cheapest man in the world, but I'm not buying it.
I told my wife that a husband's like a fine wine. We only get better with age. So the next day she locked me in the cellar.
Which bear is the most condescending? A panda.
That's good.
Why don't dinosaurs make good pets?
What's that?
Because they're dead.
Good point.
When does a dad joke cost $1,000? When it's a granddad joke.
So I went for a job interview today at IKEA. Manager said, come in and make a seat.
That's a good one.
What do you get when you cross a joke with a rhetorical question?
I don't know. That's so dumb. You know, I used to hate facial hair. Then it grew on me. You didn't even let me finish it.
I've seen those dad joke. I've seen that dad joke video now 4 times. It just gets worse every time I see that thing, you know? And I'm a little bit upset because I'm kind of like the king of dad jokes. Never got an invite from those guys. So, and don't worry, I'm not going to give you another one because I think you probably had enough after seeing that video. Hey, I want to wish you happy Father's Day. And just for all you fathers, I want to start by giving you a quiz. And here's what the quiz is. I want you to raise your hand if you hope to get this or experience this on Father's Day. All right, are you ready? Okay, raise your hand if you are hoping to get a power tool for Father's Day. Raise your hand. It's interesting because every service there was hardly any hands raised, and I think everyone was nervous with me with a power tool in my hand. I think that was kind of the whole deal. And I don't blame you because this was actually, yes, I know how to work this, by the way. This is, I think, the first time I've held a drill in 10 years, to be all honest. And what's interesting is in our house, this is not a Father's Day gift. This is my wife's Mother's Day gift. And just so you know, that's kind of how it works in our house. All right, raise your hand if you are hoping to either cook out or go out to eat and just ignore cholesterol and calories. You're just going to forget about it all just for this day at least. All right, okay, that's great. Raise your hand if you hope to sometime today kick back in a chair like this baby right here and just take a long, uninterrupted nap. How many dads, you're kind of hoping for that? Yeah, you don't have little kids, so good luck with that one. You just raise your hand. Okay, final one. Raise your hand if you are hoping your kids actually remember it's Father's Day today. How many are hoping that? That's most of us. Well, listen, happy Father's Day. This is one of those days that, it's a different experience for 2 groups of people. And the one group are those of you who have either lost a dad or you didn't grow up with a very good dad. And today's a reminder of that. And if that's you, and please, as I say this, this is going to sound like a cliche. We don't use cliches around here, okay? So I hope you don't take it as a cliche. But here's been my prayer for you, that you would allow God, who is called Heavenly Father by Jesus, to close that gap in some way for you today. But for others of you, like me, who have been fortunate enough to have a dad, and we currently have a dad that, we're just fortunate enough to have a dad like that. And maybe you are a dad like that. Can I just say Happy Father's Day to you? Because dads, it is a real special calling that we have. And as we're going to talk about a little bit, it's a generational impact that we get the opportunity to have. So thank you for all you do. Or as I tell my kids, this is the one day a year you actually have to be nice to me. And so I hope that's your experience today as well. Well, since it's Father's Day and we're in between series, I thought it'd be a good opportunity for me to just speak into the guys a bit. Whether you're a dad or not, whether you're in your teen years or you're in your retirement years. Now, if you happen to be in the 50% of the population that is not a dad or a guy, please know you're going to get something out of this as well. And the reason I felt compelled to do this was for a couple reasons. One reason is I've had way too many conversations with men who are struggling with understanding what does it mean to really be a man? Because our culture just gives us all different messages. You know, it's kind of like, oh, you should do this or you shouldn't do that. There's even a segment of culture that says, being a man is wrong in some way. And so there's a lot of confusion among men about what it means to really be a man. And when there's confusion, we either choose our own definition, which is never a good thing, or we just kind of hit the pause button, we pull back, and we stop exploring all God has for us. The other reason I felt compelled to do this is study after study shows that the percentage of men who follow Jesus is continuing to rapidly decline. Now, I'm going to give you some reasons why I think that is in a minute. But this one's really personal for me because this is one of the motivators behind why we started this church 15 or 16 years ago. That because of this very stat here, we wanted to be a church that connected with men. There was this study that came out years ago, and actually the stats are worse today. It was years ago, but once again, it's still following this trend. And the study showed this, that when the man in the relationship or family goes to church, 93% of the time, the rest of the family follows, compared to only 18% of the time when the woman goes to church. Now, please hear me. This doesn't mean that men are more important or better than women in any ways. It just means that for some reason, and I don't know what this reason is, okay? So when I say this, I don't know why. It just means for some reason that God has uniquely wired men to have a special spiritual influence in a relationship. So this means this. Guys, if you're apathetic towards God, most likely the rest of your family is going to follow your cue. And if you're taking steps towards God and you've kind of grown in your relationship with God and you're inviting your family to do so, more than likely the rest of your family, if not right away, they'll eventually follow your cues. So here's what this means. It means, guys, if you would be willing to embrace what it means to follow Jesus as men. And if you notice, I said follow Jesus, not believe in Jesus. You see, we can believe in something, it doesn't make any difference in our life. I believe kale is good for you. I don't touch that junk with a 10-foot pole, however. Now, I said follow because here's what it means to follow, and here's what I mean by follow. To follow means this. Follow means every day I get up and I decide to let Jesus lead my life. And so if you'd be willing to follow Jesus, a lot gets right in our families, it gets right in our neighborhoods, it gets right in our schools, in our communities, in churches. Listen, a lot gets right in our world. As uniquely created by God as men, I believe that every single one of you has so much potential for greatness in you. But for many of us, we aren't experiencing that greatness because we are resisting the life that Jesus has called us to experience as men. And I think there are a lot of reasons why we resist this. I think one of the reasons why we resist this is because we just have this perception, and it's not a good perception of what it means to follow Jesus. I mean, we have this perception, and I think one of the reasons why we have this perception is we just don't have a lot of good examples of what this looks like in our life. You know, when you think about just like the TV shows and the movies that we watch, have you noticed if they have the Jesus follower in it, he's more like a Ned Flanders guy or just kind of this weird, strange person, and so that's the example you get. Or you watch the news, and the news hardly has any good stories when it comes to following Jesus. And for many of us, the people that we know who do, they're kind of weird and obnoxious and all that stuff, or very hypocritical. And we're like, I don't want to become that person. Another perception that we have is we have this perception that faith equals boring. Now, let me just say this, because this is a separate talk all of its own. Listen, if your faith is boring, you just need to know you might have faith, but you don't have the faith that Jesus offered. Because the faith that Jesus offered is adventurous, it's challenging, it's hard, it's amazing, all at the same time. I think another perception that we have And this is really the only image I could come up with, at least is the image I think about, is that we think about following Jesus, we think of kind of the choir boy image. It's like it's all about following a bunch of rules, which means this: if it's fun, the answer is no. It's kind of like, hey, can I go golfing on some Sundays? No. Hey, can I play fantasy football? No, it's got the word fantasy in it. You can't play fantasy football. Hey, can I work my way up the corporate ladder? Nope, can't do that either. If it's fun, the answer is no. Now, personally, this was my big roadblock for the longest time before I decided to follow Jesus. I thought, okay, something's missing in my life. I knew that. However, I did not want to sign up for that because I thought I'm signing up for a life of no fun. But after following Jesus for over 20 years now, I'm realizing it has very little to do with no's because there are so many yeses that are yet to be discovered. Another reason we resist following Jesus is because, and we wouldn't say this out loud, but it really comes down to our perception of who Jesus is. Jesus came as a man, but our perception of him, and like I said, we wouldn't say this out loud, isn't very manly. So we see that Jesus talked about things like meekness and humility and turn the other cheek. And so when we think about Jesus, our perception of his is someone who is very weak. And so to follow him is to become like him. And it's like, I don't know if I want to become that person. Now, the problem with that perception is this doesn't match what we know about who Jesus is. First off, Jesus was a carpenter. And carpenter back then were these just big, muscular men, much like the specimen you see up here right before you now. They were big, muscular men who worked because they were doing physical labor all day. Another thing we know, and we don't think about this one either, is that Jesus willingly was flogged and crucified on a cross. Now, you don't sign up for that sort of torture if you're weak. Final thing we know about Jesus is that Jesus was willing to go against the grain of the cultural norms back then, which he would constantly be risking his life for doing so. I tell my kids this all the time. Hey, a weak person does what everybody else does. It takes a real strong person to go against the grain. And so the reality is that Jesus wasn't weak. He redefined for us what true strength looks like. And so, guys, when we resist following Jesus and the life that he has offered to us, we end up following something or someone else, and then we try to find life in that. And what I want to talk to you about today are the very things that we try to find life in. They're called the corners. There are 4 of them, so I call them the 4 corners. And these 4 corners are unique to most men. And they're unique to some women as well, please. But for men, these are unique to most men. 4 corners. Here's what the 4 corners are. Here's the first corner. I just call it the ball field. And the ball field is a guy's desire for recreation. I mean, you think about things like, playing golf, running, playing basketball, hunting, fishing, camping, or as I call it, staying in a hotel. Things like, maybe you're an artist or you're a musician or you're a crafts person. Maybe you're someone who's just technically wired and you love technology, or maybe you're someone that's into academics and reading and all that stuff. But this is where a guy goes to play and compete and have fun. For me personally, I love to run and work out. I love to sometimes play basketball because that's what I did when I was in high school and all that stuff. A couple months ago, I was heading towards a meeting with some of our Central City leaders. And so I was at a building that I'd never been to before, and so I get to this building, and I go in, and I can't find out where they're meeting. So I'm kind of looking around. As I'm looking around, I walk into this really small gym, and there's a basketball there. So I pick up the basketball, and I start dribbling. I start doing a little shaking and baking in the basketball court right there, because there's no one there, and so I'm starting to do this a little bit. And as I'm dribbling, I hear the guys, these other pastors, they're laughing. And I finally, because I could hear where they're laughing, I'm like, I know where they're meeting now. So I go to where they're meeting, and then so they're sitting there, and I have a ball in my hand, and they're just laughing at me. And I go, what are you guys laughing at? They're going, you playing basketball? They're like laughing and all that stuff. And I look at one of them, I go, hey, chump. I said, do you want a piece of this out there right now? And they're like, what? Like, yeah, you want to go at it right now? They're like, you really want to go at it? I'm like, yeah, I want to go at it, So we go out on the basketball court, and we play a quick game of pig, and I skunked him. So much so, I still send him Steph Curry memes every once in a while just to remind that dude who he lost to. But we think about the ball field part of it. This is where we go as men to compete and have fun, and it's kind of a recreation side of it. Now here's the second corner. Second corner is called the bedroom. This is this represents our sexual desires. And guys, we love the chase, we love the challenge, we love the bedroom. In fact, we think about it every 7 seconds. Now, I was thinking about just being quiet for 7 seconds to make everybody feel uncomfortable, but I'm not going to do that, okay? But guys, we love sex so much that we think about it, we think it works even when things aren't going well. This is why most men, when they think of sex, it's like a wrench to them. It'll fix anything. And the women are like, amen to that. All right, here's the third corner, boardroom. Now, the boardroom represents our vocational desires. This is the desire to lead and achieve, to solve problems. This is our desire for recognition and success. This is a man's desire just for purpose and to make a difference with their lives. This is where guys, they can either find such fulfillment or frustration in their work. Now, ladies, you do too, okay? So please hear me on that. But for a guy, there's just another layer attached to it. And then here's the final corner, and it's the billfold. This is our ability to purchase and provide wealth. This is our ability to create wealth. So these are the 4 corners for us guys right here. Now I want you to take a look at these for a minute. Now here's what's interesting about these 4 corners. God created us with a desire for all these things right here. You know, the ball field, to have fun and compete, that's from God. The bedroom idea, maybe you grew up in a church and had this impression that sex was a dirty and shameful thing. I don't understand where that came from, okay? I mean, it's like when people have that opinion, it's like, did they think that Adam and Eve came up with the whole idea, you know? It's kind of like Adam and Eve were out in the woods one day, and Adam, because it would come from Adam, okay? They're out in the woods one day, and Adam's like, hey, let's see if the 2 parts fit. Hey, they do, that's great. Don't tell God, you know? I mean, it's kind of like, where did they think that came from, you know? Listen, sex is a beautiful gift from God. The ability to just achieve and to be successful, to make a difference with our life, that came from God as well. And the ability to be rewarded for our work, that came from God. So if you're looking at this and going, hey, I like those things, I desire those things, listen, that's a very good thing, and you should, because those desires were given to us by God himself. But here's where we get into trouble. We get into trouble where we try to find, and when we try to find meaning and purpose in the corners. It's kind of like the ball field, and we think life is all about recreation, fun, and our comfort. The bedroom, if you're single, as a man, you think, well, if I go from partner to partner, the more people that I'm with, the more of a man I feel like. Or if you're married, it can be easy as a married man to evaluate your relationship and yourself based on the quality of your sex life. When you think about your vocational thing, it can be chasing title and status and title and status, and we try to find fulfillment in our title and our status. And then it becomes right here about all the status and stuff, and status and stuff, and status and our stuff. And we love to have stuff, not only just to have the stuff, but we love what people think of us when we have the stuff. You see, the problem is when we try to find life and meaning in the corners. But here's what we need to realize about the corners. The more that we try to find life in the corners, the more we realize that they can't provide us the life that we're looking for. You see, it's in the corners where we realize just how lonely and empty life is. You know, lonely. You know, we spend all this time in the corners and we're consumed with the corners, and we get to a point in our life where we realize we don't really have any true deep relationships with people, including our very family. A recent study showed, and this was pre-COVID, okay, so the numbers are actually showing they're worse now. The recent study showed that 1 in 5 Americans don't have any close friends. And for men, that's actually a lot worse. But we're not just lonely. We end up feeling empty with our life. You see, your pursuit just becomes about you. And here's what we say around here. We say, hey, if life's just all about you, you will only have you to show for your life. See, it's in the corners that we wake up one day and we wonder, is there more to life than just this life? You see, we think life in the corners, that we're actually going to get life, but the more time we spend there, the more time we feel like we're craving more from life. And so this leaves us with a big question. If not in the corners, then where do we get it? If God made us with these desires, then where can I find purpose and meaning and significance with my life? Well, the good news is Jesus, he actually gives us insight into this very thing. And we're going to look at a few verses that Jesus was actually talking to some religious leaders, and understand the religious leaders back then, they were like the anti-Jesus crowd. So Jesus is standing up with a crowd of religious leaders, and there was other people around as well, and he is calling out their hypocrisy. He is basically saying, hey, you think you know God, you think you're an expert on God, but you don't have a stinking clue about who God is. And then listen to what Jesus says to them. He says this, he says, I'm the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved. In other words, they'll be protected, they'll be guarded, they'll be kept safe. And then he says, they will come and go and find pasture. They're going to find food, they're going to find peace, they're going to find whatever they need. And so Jesus is using an imagery that would have connected very much to them back then, this idea of comparing sheep and people. And then he says this, he says the thief comes. And when he's talking about the thief, he's talking about Satan. He's talking about our spiritual enemy. Now listen to the three words he uses to describe what the thief is trying to do. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. So steal, take something from you. Kill, end something that's good permanently. And destroy, blow it up altogether. And so what Jesus is saying is, we are looking for life, but our spiritual enemy is doing everything he can to take and strip and destroy the things good in our life from us. I think one of the primary ways that the thief does this is he tries to get us to believe two huge lies. And one of the lies he tries to get us to believe is this: his life is found in the corners. Now let's put our picture back up again. Here's how this might look. The ball field. Hey, your life is just all about your comfort and fun, and don't worry about anything else. You just get to this point where you don't have to worry about anything else but fun and comfort. The bedroom, it's like, well, okay, whoa, what are you saying to me? You're saying to me, be with one person and wait till you're married? It's like, all right, yeah. It's 2022, not 1952. And guys, if you're married, it's like some of you are sensing this. It's like, hey, I'm not getting my needs met at home in the way I want to get my needs met at home. And so the enemy will go, hey, listen, it's okay to look outside that. Hey, listen, you have needs to be met. It's okay to do a little flirting. It's okay to watch a little porn. It's okay to have an affair. You deserve to have your needs met. And listen, your vocational stuff, your gifts and your abilities and all that stuff you've been given, your success, that is your success. It's all for you and the building of your life and your kingdom. And billfold, hey, listen, you need newer, you need bigger, you need better. Hey, listen, you need that stuff. And your money, listen, that is your money. You earned it. Don't let anyone else tell you what to do with your money. And so the idea is significance and meaning and a life that matters. It's always found in the corners. Many men will experience what's called a midlife crisis. And what a midlife crisis basically is when a man tries to go back to or recapture an experience that they had in one of the corners at one point in their life. Because they experienced something there for a time, and as a result, they thought that was life, and so now they reach a certain age, and they want to go back and recapture that experience again. Just a little side note. If you ever see me drive up into the front here with a brand new red Corvette, you will know that I'm going through a midlife crisis. And you will also know that we are broke, and my wife has divorced me at that period of time. So just a little side note. So, lie number one is life is found in the corners. The second lie he tries to tell us is that God doesn't want what's best for you. That if the thief can get us to doubt God's motives for our life, that he really doesn't want what's best for us. If he can get us to that place, then we will continue to live life in the corners. Because if we believe that lie, we'll continue to believe this lie, that I know what's best for me. So here's ultimately what the thief is trying to do in our lives, whether you're a man or not, but this really hits home for a man. He's trying to get us to believe this, that our identity is based on what we do and what we have. That who we are as a person is based on what we do and what we have. That basically he's trying to take those God-given desires and get us to use those to determine who we are as a person. That if I have that, and if I achieve that, and I get that again, then I'm fulfilled, then I'm somebody, then I'm a person. I am what I do, and I am what I have. Now listen, if this is where we are, this is such a dangerous place to be. And the reason this is such a dangerous place to be, because have and do are always movable. For example, if your identity is wrapped up in your work, what happens when you lose your job then? You see, you will never find peace when your identity is any of those things. This is what Jesus calls being stolen from. But listen to Jesus' solution. He says this. He says, I have come that they may have life, that they may have meaning and purpose and significance, and have it to the full. And that word full in some translations is a rich life, an abundant life. And so Jesus makes this amazing claim. He said, life is not found in a philosophy, and it's not found even in my teachings, as important as my teachings are. He says, Jesus says we discover life from and through him. That we discover life when we put him in the center of our four corners. So let me put this chart back up. Here's what he means by that. That when Jesus becomes the filter for all of these other things. You see, this is important, because if Jesus is not in the center here, we will continue to try to find life in the things that aren't designed to find life. But when we get to the spot, we realize, hey, God designed me with these things, but I will only find life in them when they are an outflow of a bigger pursuit, and that pursuit is the pursuit of Jesus, the author of life. It is only then that we will discover life. Years ago, I was talking to a good friend of mine, and we were just talking about this whole idea of being a man and following God in our culture, and how challenging and difficult it is, and just all the different challenges that come with that. And then he made this statement, and this statement has always stood out to me. And here's what he said, and this is it's not just a man statement; it's for ladies as well, but in the context of what we're talking about. He said it in the context of men, and he said, hey, the greatness of a man, once again, you could put greatness of a person in there if you want, but the greatness of a man is in direct proportion to the measure of his surrender. Now, guys, if we're honest, we don't like that word surrender. We like the word control. We like the word power up. We like the word do it my way, my kingdom, my. We hear surrender and we think weak. We hear surrender and we think less than, or settling for less than. We hear surrender, we say giving up on something that I don't really want to give up on. But here's what my friend meant by surrender. It's instead of resisting following Jesus and the life that he's invited us into because we think we know better, do the opposite. Embrace it, submit to it. And when we do so, that's when we begin to experience the supernatural greatness that God has put in all of us. And why would we have to surrender to God for that? Because God made us. And so he knows best how to lead us into the great life that he has created us. So surrender is not a sign of weakness. Surrender is actually a sign of great strength. And it's only then that we experience the life Jesus is invited into. In all honesty, the life that we want and seek to be invited into. So let me get real practical with you. Here's how this might look in your life with Jesus in the center. So let's put our picture back up there again, at the four corners. So how might this look? Well, okay, for a ball field, it might look like this. Have fun. Fill your cup. In fact, do things that fill your cup. In fact, this is a very important part of just the rhythm that Jesus wants to be into in our life. But listen, win or lose, don't let it be your identity. You're God's child. Let that determine your identity. When you think of the bedroom, listen, if sex is a gift from God, doesn't it make sense that we learn to use it in the way that he intended it for us to use it? Wilt Chamberlain, one of the greatest basketball players of all time, actually slept with over 20,000 women. And here's what he said right before he died. He said this: with all of you men out there who think that having 1,000 different ladies is cool, I have learned that having one woman 1,000 different times is much more satisfying. There's a lot of sexual confusion right now in our culture, and that's a conversation for another day. But here's what I would challenge you men with. Learn to exercise your sexual desires within the boundaries that God has in place for you. And if you would be willing to do that, here's what will happen. You'll be more fulfilled, you'll have more fun, because you will have more and better sex because of it. Boardroom. No matter what you do for a living, If you follow Jesus, you should be known as one of the hardest workers and best performers wherever you work. And people should like working with you. Now, let me just speak into those of you who manage people, who are maybe business owners, but you are responsible for people. Here's what I want to speak into you with. Expect a lot. Pay well. But lead with integrity and vision. And when you have to make a tough call, because leaders always have to make a tough call, do it with class and humility and compassion. And let me just also say this, wherever God has placed you in the workplace, whether it be at home, whether it be outside of home, wherever that may be, wherever God has placed you, he has just not placed you there for your career advancement and your financial advancement, even though that's important. He has placed you there also because he wants to use you to make a difference in the lives of those around you. Final corner, billfold. God's not against money and stuff. He just doesn't want money and stuff to have us. So he wants us to be great stewards of the resources he's entrusted us with because they're from him anyways. And so we should be great savers. We should live within our means. And we should be known as the biggest tippers on the planet. When you're in restaurants, tip big. And we should be big givers to what God has called us to do as far as advancing his mission in this community and in this world. So if you want to find life in your billfold, it's not about what you have. That's a chase that you will never catch up to whatever you're chasing. It's endless. If you want life in your billfold, it's not known for what you have. It's known for how much you give. So let me wrap it up by just challenging you with 2 questions. Now, once again, these questions could be for everybody, but guys, these are really targeted for you. And I know it's Father's Day, okay, so you're going to be getting, drills and eating out and all that stuff. So you can take today off and you can start looking at these questions tomorrow because of this special day. But here's the 2 questions I want to leave you with. Which one of the corners are you trying to find life in? And let me just cut to the chase on how you know. Look at your calendar, look at your checkbook, and think about what you think about. Those 3 things right there are a window into what matters most, your life. And then the second question. What is your biggest fear? In not believing in Jesus, but surrendering, following Jesus. Getting up every day and go, okay, whatever it is, I'm going to let you, Lord, lead my life. What is that for you? It might be you're just afraid that you have to give up something. Or you're afraid you're going to miss out on something. Or you might even be afraid of who you might become if you do that. Those fears that you're fearing, those are very, very normal fears, very, very common fears. But listen, whatever you have to give up, whatever you have to miss out on, and listen, who you will become, I'm just going to tell you this right now. As good as you are now, you're going to like that person much, much better. Whatever that is will fail in comparison to what you will gain and experience following Jesus. So guys, let me just say this. I don't get a chance to do this that often, and I couldn't wait to do it just because this wasn't just a pastor talk to me. This was a guy-to-guy, man-to-man talk to me. Because I'm your biggest cheerleader. It's why we started this church. And you know what? If you hadn't noticed, I am one of you as well. I am in the trenches with you as well. And I want to put this picture back up again. I really do. And I can't say this enough. You will never feel more alive as a man than when Jesus is at the center. You will never have more fun having fun than when Jesus is in the center. Your dating relationships and your marriages, I am telling you, they will never be better than when Jesus is in the middle. And what you do, whatever it is you do, you will never feel more fulfilled in your vocation than when Jesus is in the middle. And you will never feel more free financially than when Jesus is in the middle. And that search for purpose that you long for, to be a part of something bigger than yourself, it's because God created you to be a part of something that was bigger than you. And that's why you long for that. So listen, don't settle for life in the corners. It is just too small of a life. Plus, as I said earlier, there is so much at stake for the choices that you make. There is a generational impact attached to this. And guys, I know for some of you, I'm just really proud of you. Because some of you, you're having the courage to take steps in your faith. You're getting baptized, you're using your gifts and abilities to serve, you're in community with other people, you're leading the way in generosity. And in the process of doing so, you are inspiring and being more attractive to not only the people around you, but if you have a special person, being more attractive to that person. Because what you're discovering life in the very thing you're tempted to resist, a life following Jesus. Let me pray for us. Father, I just thank you for, I thank you for all people, God, but just today, as we just think about this, how you have uniquely created men. And just the gifts and the abilities and the passion, the influence, all that. And God, and just to think about that responsibility and what goes with that, it's pretty awe-inspiring. And so, Father, I lift up all the men here, and I pray, God, that you'd give them the courage and that you'd give them the humility to step into what does surrendering to you look like? What does that really look like right now? Because there's always further that we can go. And Father, it's so easy for us to get our identity wrapped up in what we have and what we do. That's just kind of the chase, God. That's where things go. Father, may we have the strength that you had, and to buck that system and to buck culture and to go, our identity is honestly, it's found in who we are with you, and we get to live out of that. And the corners and everything else, they take their full meaning because of that. So Father, pray over all the men. I just pray that you would just open up their hearts to you. And Father, I think you're doing something in our community. And I think a part of it is going to be that us as men, we're willing to step in and really go, all right, let's go. Let's go. And that we have the courage to do that, because I think you want to do something bigger. And you won't do that without our willingness to step forward. And so may we do that in our lives. And we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.